a todos, soy Javier Poveda y esto es De Bien TV, el canal donde te lo vas a pasar de miedo, sí, pero también de bien mientras aprendes geografía, historia e historia del arte. Y este año un poquito de economía y de empresariales. Este vídeo va dirigido a mis alumnos de 1º de Sección del CEIPSO en Encinar de Torrelodones. So, in this video, we are going to take a look at the Unit 3 of the textbook, which is Water on Earth. We are going to follow the presentation you have already uploaded to the virtual classroom. So, let's go with some spectacular special effects. Oh my god. Here we are on the presentation. This picture is the Iguazu waterfalls, which are located in Argentina, a very beautiful landscape. So, okay, here we are. So let's talk about water on Earth. As you know, water is composed of 2 parts hydrogen and 1 part oxygen, H2O. Water is mostly found in a liquid state, for example here in the sea, but it also appears as vapor, ice and snow. The combination of all the water on Earth in every state and both fresh and salt water is called the hydrosphere, la hidrosfera. Here in this picture you have the 3 states of the water. We can see the water on a liquid state, the sea, on solid state, this large ice block, and on the gas state, the clouds. Very easy. So we can find water on Earth in we can distinguish 2 types of of water: salt water, agua salada, and fresh water, agua dulce, no agua fresca, no sweet water, fresh water. So first, salt water is the most abundant because it makes up most of the water on Earth, around 97% of the water. It is found in oceans and seas. You can see the proportion here in this graph. Almost all of the water on Earth is salt water. So we can find it on oceans and seas. What is the difference? Oceans are large bodies of salt water, while seas are smaller bodies of water than the oceans, and they are surrounded by land on all or most sides. The fresh water, on the other hand, accounts for only 3% of the total water on the planet, this yellow part of the cylinder. Most fresh water is concentrated in the form of ice in glaciers, the polar caps here, the 68.7%, or in underground deposits, which is also called subterranean water, 30.1%. The surface water only makes up 0.3% of the fresh water. This is the mixture of fresh and salt water at the end of a river in Spain, in Rio Segre, if I am not mistaken. Okay, the left part is fresh water and the right part is salt water, and they are mixing here in the middle. So we have to know what is the water cycle. I know that you have already studied this in biology, but so we have only to know the basics. So the water starts evaporating from the rivers, from the plants, this is called transpiration, and from the oceans and seas, and they rise to the atmosphere. Then they condense, the vapor condenses in the form of clouds. The clouds move, pushed by the wind, and then they finally, when they warm up, the water vapor falls in the form of precipitation. It can be ice, it can be snow, it can be rain, it can be drizzle, whatever. Then the water that falls is transported again by the rivers here and comes back, or they can also infiltrate in the ground and they come back to the sea, so the cycle closes. Okay, so evaporation here, transport, condensation, precipitation, and then again transport and to the starting point. okay? Just the basics, the 4 parts we saw in class. So let's talk now about the oceans and the seas. The movement of the water here in the oceans and the seas generates 3 types of movement: waves, tides, and currents. Olas, mareas, y corrientes marinas. Let's talk first about the waves. The waves are the result of the rising and falling movement of the water because of the pressure of the wind on its surface. And the surface of the water forms small circular movements that break close to the coast because of the shallow water. Here in this diagram it is very well explained. The wind blows in this direction here to the right, and it makes this movement of the water. Okay, why? Because the water particles move like this in small circular movements. When the water gets closer to the shore, then this movement is interrupted by the seabed, okay, the sea floor. So it starts to lean forward until this movement cannot be completed, so the waves break. If you have gone to the beach or if you have gone on vacation, you have seen the waves breaking in the coast, okay, in the beach or in the shore. The tides, las mareas, are the periodic changes in the level of the water in the oceans and the seas, and this is caused by the gravitational pull of the sun and the moon. We have high tide and low tide, marea alta, marea baja. High tide is when the water reaches its highest point, and low tide when it reaches the lowest point. Okay, this is a diagram. You also know this because you studied it on biology, but we have to know it also here. Okay, this is an example. On your left we have oh my god, we have a high tide, and on the right we have low tide. And here as well, this is Mont Saint-Michel, which is located in France, in the north part of France, and this is the look of this island of Mont Saint-Michel when it is high tide, and this is when it's low high tide. So low tide, not low high tide. Oh my god, Saturday in the morning. I cannot think. Let's go to the current, the sea and ocean currents. What are they? They are bodies of water that, like rivers, move and create enormous circular patterns. Okay, they are like rivers within the sea that travel inside the seas and the oceans. They can be hot or cold. Okay, here you can see the circular patterns that the water do in the oceans and in the seas. This is called the ocean currents. So we had hot and cold currents. The hot currents, also known as warm currents, they cause high temperatures and abundant rain on the coast where they circulate, while the cold currents, they lower the temperatures and create deserts because the cold water doesn't evaporate, so it doesn't cause rain. There are a lot of currents in the world. Here in red, the red arrows are the hot currents or warm currents, and the blue arrows are the cold currents. Okay, do we need to know all these names? No, I don't even know them. But we need to know that the hot currents predominate in the tropical and equatorial areas or latitudes, and the cold currents, they predominate in the polar latitudes. Okay. And talking about latitudes and currents and maps, we have to know the name of the 5 oceans of the Earth. Okay, they are very easy. The Atlantic Ocean is here. It is between Europe, America, and Africa. The Indian Ocean is between Asia, Africa, and Australia. Okay, Océano Índico, Indian Ocean. Océano Atlántico, Atlantic Ocean. Then the Pacific Ocean, el Océano Pacífico, it is between America and Asia and Australia. Okay, both here and here. And then we have the polar oceans. They are the Arctic Ocean next to the North Pole and the Southern Ocean next to Antarctica in the south. Okay, very easy, but we have to know them and we have to know where they are. Let's talk now about continental waters, the waters that we can find inland. Continental waters are almost exclusively formed by fresh water. And this water, we can find it under the ground, and this is called subterranean water or groundwater, and also on the surface in the form of glaciers, lakes, and rivers. This is a well that is showing us part of this groundwater. So, first we have rivers. Rivers are continuous currents of water. They don't disappear during the dry seasons, for example, on summer, which sometimes occurs in streams. A stream es un arroyo. A stream in the dry season, they don't carry water, while the river carries water throughout all the year. And we have rivers that flow into the sea and rivers that flow into other rivers. These rivers are called tributaries, affluentes. Here is an example of the river Manzanares, that you know it crosses Madrid, and which is ending in the river Río Jarama, okay, which it's also in Madrid. And this is my house, but don't tell anybody. The rivers have three parts. Its course, the path they follow, it has three parts. At the beginning, it is called the part of the river. It's called the upper course. Okay, I'm going to show you an example with the river Guadalquivir. As you know, it's in the south of Spain. Here we have a straight river, and the flow is its flow is not very big, but the speed of the water is fast. Okay, then we go to the middle course. Here the river gets wider, okay, and the speed lowers. This is the Guadalquivir next to Córdoba. This is the Córdoba Mosque, or cathedral. And finally we have the lower course where the river goes into the sea, and this is the end of the river Guadalquivir, the estuary of the Guadalquivir River near Sanlúcar de Barrameda and Chipiona, if I remember correctly. And here the river achieves its most, it's the widest part of the river, and ends on the Atlantic Ocean. Okay, very easy. Upper, middle, and lower course. It starts in the upper course, continues in the middle course, and ends in the lower course. Then the lakes are inland bodies of still water. Still water means agua estancada. And we also have small lakes, and they are called ponds, estanques. For example, here you have el Lago de Sanabria, which is located in Zamora. It's the largest lake in Spain, and a very beautiful place. I recommend you to visit it. And also we have groundwater that we found it in large deposits under the Earth's surface. These deposits are called aquifers, okay? And we use it for drinking and for watering our crops, and we use wells to do that. Here is a well, okay? Don't drink water from wells because then you will have stomach pain, okay? Right, well, it's okay. And finally we have glaciers. Glaciers are large bodies of ice that cover both the polar regions and the mountain summits. Summit is this part of the mountain, the top. Okay, large blocks of ice break off from these bodies of ice, from these glaciers, and they are called icebergs. Okay, this is the Perito Moreno Glacier, located also in Argentina, and sometimes some pieces here of some large blocks of ice, they break off the end of the glacier from the end of the glacier, and they float into the surface like this, and these are called icebergs. Here you have a video of the B-15, which is the biggest iceberg of all time that I showed you in class. So why the rivers and seas are important for humans? because they have been essential for the human development or to human development and still are today. Why? As you know, or as you presume, most cities are located next to a river or located at the river mouth at the end of the river, in order to have access to a port and have contact with people who live inland. Why? Because rivers fertilize the land, so we get better and more quantity of crops. Rivers provide energy for human activities, such as hydroelectrical energy in the dams, and rivers are also used as a means of communication. Okay, we can communicate by boat. For example, here you have a picture of the river Nile here in Egypt, and it was essential for the development of the ancient Egyptian civilization. We will study that at the end of this course. So for what do we use the seas and the oceans? For many purposes. For example, for navigation. This is the biggest merchant ship that has been ever built, the Maersk Mckinney Møller. Okay, this is all for trading, for example. We use it for fishing, okay, for food. We can obtain food with these enormous fishing boats and with these enormous nets. We use it for energy. Here you have an oil plant that is extracting oil from the bottom of the sea. Well, from the under the bottom of the from the underground of the seabed. That's it. We use it for salt ponds because to obtain salt, this is la Laguna Rosa de Torrevieja, Alicante. Okay, we fill these ponds with seawater, and then we wait it to evaporate, and we obtain this salt. Okay, very easy way to obtain salt from the sea. And we also use the seas for leisure, ocio, and sports. Okay, this is some sailboats. This is the America Cup, which is the most important competition. And of course, you have been to the sea, you have been to the beach. We use the seas for tourism, for example. But water can also be related to some risks and problems. For example, we can find this, or sometimes these flood disasters happen. A flood es una inundación. So serious floods are often caused by summer or autumn storms, when heavy rain falls in the mountains and then the water falls into the valleys and then cause these serious floods, or when there is a rapid melting of the snow. The snow transforms into a liquid state and then it floods all the valleys. Also, these flood disasters can also occur because of the extreme weather phenomena, such as hurricanes. For example, this one, the Hurricane Katrina, I think this was in 2004, but it destroyed most of the southern part of the United States, mostly in the city of New Orleans. Tornadoes, which are the same but on the continent, okay? And monsoons. Monsoons, we will study them. Monsoons are the monzones, and they are heavy rains that happen in the summer, but we will study them better and more deeply when we study the weather, okay, and the climates. This is the result of a flood, and this happened in China, okay? It destroys all the crops and destroys many of the buildings. But also we have the opposite, which is the water scarcity, la escasez de agua. And it occurs when there is very little precipitation or when humans extract more rainwater than the amount that has fallen. Okay, we can also call this drought, sequía. Here I have brought you the example of the Aral Sea, which is in Central Asia, and the Russians use the water from this sea to water their crops, okay, for agriculture here around the sea. And this is a picture of 40 years ago, I think, and this is the the landscape that we can find today, okay? It is almost dry. That is the problems related to the overuse of the water. And if there is no rain, well, this happens. And that's it for this unit, okay? Very easy unit, very short, but we have to know all these things. We finish with this picture of the Victory Falls in the center of Africa. Another beautiful landscape created by the water. Madre mía, vaya efectos especiales. Con esto hemos terminado la unidad 3 y nos despedimos como siempre con una frase, a ver, aquí, maravillosa. Es una frase probablemente apócrifa que dijo el escritor norteamericano Mark Twain, que dice: Dios creó la guerra para que los estadounidenses aprendieran geografía. Porque claro, si estás invadiendo cosas, pues tienes que saber dónde están, porque si no los soldados se pierden. Esto viene muy al hilo porque el martes que viene, como sabéis, son las elecciones norteamericanas. Seguramente sea falsa, pero graciosa. Muchas gracias por ver el vídeo y nos vemos en el próximo.